Moore Law is underwritten in the public interest by the Moore Law Firm, a legal professional association. This is Moore Law on Fox 19.
When it comes to the topic of adoption, the questions are endless. Do you need special skills or qualities to adopt? Do you have to be married? And how much information will you get about the biological parents? On the other hand, if you're the biological parent giving a child up for adoption, what rights do you have? And what exactly is open adoption? The phone lines are open and we're taking your adoption questions live on the air. Give us a call at 513-421-4691. Don Moore, it's always my favorite part of my Monday, seeing you.
You're going to have to upgrade your Monday.
I'll get to work on that.
All right. Hey, I understand you've been really, really busy hauling kids the last week or so.
Oh, I have. We had been talking that my oldest son, Jack, is in the Christmas Carol at the Playhouse in the Park. So they have 40-ish performances, and so my car's on autopilot right now, really getting back and forth.
So that's keeping Mom really busy.
It is, but it is so much fun, and the people in the cast, the adults are so great with the kids, and they're so talented, and it's just been an amazing experience for them.
Do you know the script yet?
I know the script by heart. If they need somebody to stand in, you need Tiny Tim, that's me.
Hey, well listen, today's all about adoption, and we have a lawyer that's handled tons of them with us today. Gail, welcome.
Hi, good to be here.
Thanks for coming in.
Gail Hoffman and I have known each other longer than we probably should admit. We graduated from law school over 32 years ago. And that whole time, Gail's been handling adoptions as well as other legal matters. She graduated from Chase, like I did. And she is actually, like in my family, she's got multi-generations in the attorney business. I think there's a half dozen lawyers, is that right?
Yep, there is my father, my sister and I, and my husband, and then my daughter and her husband.
So it makes for lively holiday conversation around the table, right?
Sometimes too lively.
Yeah, I'll bet, like in our family.
Yeah.
You know, Gil, you wanted, I think, to start off, you were hoping that we could talk a little bit about the connection between foster care and adoption. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes, I think the largest number of adoptions generally are going to come from foster care, children that are in foster care because they've been removed from their parents' home. And there's a big need for that. And, you know, as the usage of drugs and those kinds of things rises, the number of children in foster care rises. But they usually, people get into foster care programs, and a lot of times they'll have a child that is placed with them as a foster child before they even finish the training program. And sometimes they end up keeping that child. And it could be any age from an infant up to, you know, an older child. So,
do you think many people come into the foster care system thinking that they're going to want to adopt, or do they come in just thinking of fostering, and then it just becomes a relationship where they want to adopt?
I think some of them do, and I send a lot of people there because people want to know where there are children that are available for adopting, and they are available through the state, and I'm sure they're available here in Ohio as well, even though I don't practice here. But there's a big need for adoptive parents.
Okay.
And the way you start into the program is it kind of not totally committed, but through the foster parent program. That's really how they get you through to the adoption. You train as a foster parent, and then you're qualified to be an adoptive parent.
Okay.
By going through that training
system. Okay, great. Let's head to the phones now. Let's start with Deborah. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning.
What's your question, Deborah?
Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead with your question.
Is there a requirement for the foster care program? Like, is it okay if you are retired, or do you have to have certain requirements, like you have a job?
Are there certain things that they look for?
They just want you to be, they want you to be if you're married, in a stable relationship. If you're not, they just want you to be a stable person. They are not, and they're not really concerned about what your income is or anything of the nature. They just want you to be a stable person with good references, and then you can be qualified to be a foster parent and actually an adoptive parent as well.
Gail, where some of these kids come from are just disastrous families, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
And so basically they're looking for an upgrade for the kid for the best interest of the child.
Yes, but now you got to remember that they do have to go through the juvenile court process and try to reconcile the families. And if it doesn't work, then they can terminate their rights. So sometimes there'll be a placement for a placement back in, in foster care, but those people would have them all through the foster care, or maybe would have them all the way through foster care, and then adopt when they terminate their parental rights.
I see.
And that happens quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay. Next, let's talk to Michael in Northern Kentucky. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Michael, what you got?
I have prior felonies, but I'm working on getting them expunged. How would I go about getting a child?
And are you, Michael, are you in Kentucky or Ohio?
Kentucky.
Okay.
What's he asking?
He said he has a felony record, and he's working on getting them expunged, and he wants to know if he would be eligible to adopt.
Well, it's a question of what the felony, and I don't want to get into specifics, but it's a question of what the conviction is for. I have had situations, that is one thing they don't, the state does a criminal record check, usually in Kentucky, and if there is a charge, the state won't approve the adoption. I have had situations where somebody did something 20 years ago and they're now an upstanding citizen, and I take them to a psychologist or someone who can tell the court that they are past that part of their life and can really be a responsible person. I guess that's pretty much how that works. It really just depends on what the charge is and if that relates in any way to taking care of a child.
Gail, is this, a lot of this up to the discretion of the individual court?
Yes, it is.
So they're going to use criteria like what crimes they might allow and what crimes they would absolutely not consider?
Right, but the cabinet's going to turn all of them down, but that doesn't mean it's over because you have the ability to go to the judge with some other information.
And when you say the cabinet, what do you mean?
The cabinet is the child services, so to speak,
okay.
that, they approve, they take care of foster parents, but they also approve adoptions. So they would have the right to say that, they can't adopt, but that doesn't mean the judge has to agree with them, although he might.
Okay, very good.
Just depends on what it is.
Okay, great. Well, we will take a break, and we'll be right back talking all about adoptions. Give us a call, 513-421-4691.
Welcome back to More Law on Fox 19, your legal questions live, with local broadcaster and award-winning reporter Deb Haas and Cincinnati personal injury attorney Don Moore, recognized by Ohio super lawyers. More answers, more help, more law on Fox 19.
Welcome back. We take you now to your More Law Connection, where attorney Dan Moore is answering viewer emails. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, Deb. Our first question this morning has to do with a technical legal concept that's very difficult. Bob asks, I was arrested last year and they hurt me when they put me in the car. How can I prove this and get the police to pay for my injury? This is one of those cases that's called an excessive use of force. It's a potentially very difficult case, probably the most difficult that a civil lawyer can pursue. It's one of these cases where you have to deal with a concept called immunity. Immunity is a technical legal term to reference a concept that you generally can't sue the government. Every one of these cases, the police is going to get up and say, you can't sue us, we're part of the government, you don't have any way to recover from us. The way you get around immunity in these cases is to demonstrate that the police acted so far out of bounds of what they're supposed to do that a reasonable police officer would not have acted that way. Basically, you look at the situation and you say, wow, I cannot believe that they did that. That's the type of thing you're looking for to get around this immunity. Now, when it comes to proving these cases, what you need is all the video you can get from bystanders, pictures from bystanders, video from cruisers, statements from fellow police officers, statements from witnesses, your medical records, pictures of your injuries. All those things help to demonstrate that you've got a claim that you can recover from. Now, it's important to remember, though, that this really focuses on the behavior of the police, not on your injuries. So the fact that you suffered an injury doesn't necessarily mean that the police did anything wrong. Very technical requirements, but you can recover in the right circumstances. Deb?
All right, Dan, thanks a lot. We are back with Gail Hoffman talking all about injuries today, and we do want to go right back to the phones. We have Ebony in Cincinnati. Good morning, Ebony.
Good morning.
Please let us know your question.
Yes, hi.
Me and my husband, we've been married for 3 years. We both have kids outside of the marriage, and we would like to know how we go about getting adoption for each other's children.
Adopting each other's kids? Okay.
That's a good question, a common situation.
Yes, it is. Those are called step-parent adoptions generally. And I guess the first question would be if the other parent is willing to consent to the adoption, or in Kentucky, and as I'm sure it is in Ohio, you might be able to do it without consent if certain conditions exist. But usually, in most step-parent cases, you see a consent by the other parent. So.
Yeah, so I guess the way I understand what you've said, and it's my understanding as well, that let's say the father of Ebony's child would have to consent in order for her husband to be able to adopt that child. And if he would not consent, if there were certain circumstances,
Right.
like he hadn't had anything to do with the kids for a long time, you could have a hearing and perhaps terminate his rights, and then
Correct.
and then go ahead with an adoption.
That's
Is
correct.
that how it works?
Yep, and it would work both ways there.
Okay,
both with
very
them.
good.
Okay. Let's go now to Scott. Scott, as I understand it, you were born in 1963 and adopted, and you're trying to get a hold of those records?
Yes, Sam.
Hey, Scott, were you born in Kentucky? You were born in Kentucky, or you're from Virginia, or what's your
I
status?
was born in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, and you live in Kentucky now?
I live in Ohio.
Oh, okay, all right.
Scott, if you could turn your television down, I'm just kind of having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
Gil, what do you got for him?
Okay, well, usually adoption records are always sealed. You cannot get into them unless you have the permission of the judge. Now, I'm not sure what the rules are anyplace else, but at this point now in Kentucky, when an adoption is processed, the birth parents are asked whether they want to be contacted in the event the child seeks to contact them, and that's put in the file, and the judge goes by that. If they didn't want to be contacted, there's no contact. But if they say they're open to contact, then the judge will give you enough information to do that. You have to fill out an application at the court where the adoption took place. So you'd actually have to go look at your adoption judgment and see what court it is and go to that court and ask for permission.
That's actually been a changing area, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
I mean, like I know years ago, when I was involved in some adoptions, they wanted to try and make that severance or that change permanent, so that the biological parents and the child could not find each other and keep it a secret. And that's really changed a lot. So as Gail said, you can go ahead and make a petition, and there are mechanisms probably in most states where you can actually discover who the biological parents were.
Is it a lot more, we talk about open adoptions. Is it in general, whether it's an open adoption or closed, there's just more information out there now than like Don was saying years ago? It just you couldn't get the information.
Yes, I was on a foster care review board in Kenton County years ago, and the parents were never given all the information, the adoptive parents were not given all the information about the child. And now, about their background, what happened to them, what was going on with the family. But now they give them all of that information. They actually they get the ability to basically look into the file and see what the state knows about the child and their family, which is that's a huge change.
Well, and it's important because, if you're talking about, if you have physical issues or illnesses that run in your family.
That's correct, and you need to know that information. That's the only way you're going to know it, is to have that. Because unless the parents fill out there's also a medical form that the birth parents fill out at the time of the adoption. Some of them refuse to do it, so you don't have anything unless you have that information. Okay. So the state usually knows pretty much what's going on.
Okay. All right, great. Let's go back to Dan Moore with another email question. Dan?
Okay, Deb, thanks a lot. Our second question is from somebody.
I think it's Rebecca.
Rebecca, there we go. My daughter, she says, my daughter fell while ice skating and broke her front teeth. Is the rink responsible for that? Today must be the day for fancy legal terms, because the other fancy legal term we're going to talk about is the assumption of the risk doctrine. The assumption of the risk applies whenever you participate in an activity, a sport, where there's inherent risks associated with that you can get injured, in other words. So if you're playing football, you might get hurt. If you play baseball, you might turn an ankle. If you ice skate, you might fall down. Somebody might run into you. You might run into the boards of the ice skating rink and get hurt. If any of those things happen during the normal course of that activity, the law says that you've assumed the risk, which means no one else is liable for it. You have to shoulder the risk yourself and pay for the damage yourself. So I'm assuming that, given this question, that your daughter fell during the normal course of her activity, that nobody was pushing her down, or there wasn't any special circumstances. If that's the case, this is an assumption of the risk. The ice skating rink is not responsible. Okay, so if you have a question, go to the fox19.com and click on the More Law link, fill out the Send Us Your Questions form, and submit your questions to us. We will do our best, as usual, to answer those questions. That is all I have for today. Deb, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Dan. We will take a break right now. We'll be back talking all about adoptions.